Sometimes life brings you to a point where every door shuts, every prayer feels unanswered, and every hope seems broken. But remember this, when God steps in, miracles don't just happen, they overflow. Today, I'm going to share 3 life-changing truths that will remind you why God's timing is never late, His power is never limited, and His love never fails. There comes a moment in every believer's life when the weight becomes too much, the road feels too long, and the battles seem endless. You wake up one day and realize you have tried everything you knew, you prayed all the prayers, you pushed, you fought, you stretched your strength to the last drop, yet nothing changed. And it is exactly in that moment, when you stand at the end of yourself, that God begins to step in. You see, as humans, we love being in control. We love plans. We love solutions. We love knowing what's next. But God often allows us to reach a point where our own strength isn't enough, not because He wants to break us, but because He wants to show us that His strength has no limits and His power begins when ours ends. Think of Moses standing at the Red Sea, behind him Pharaoh's army, in front of him an ocean, no escape, no strategy, no backup plan. One of the greatest miracles in history came not during a moment of comfort, but during absolute helplessness. When Moses reached the end of himself, God stepped in and made a way where no way existed. That's how God moves. He takes the darkest moment and turns it into the doorway of deliverance. He takes the moment of your weakness and transforms it into the stage for His glory. Sometimes God lets us run out of strength, so we will finally stop relying on ourselves and start relying on Him. Your tears are not a sign of failure. They are a sign that you tried. Your exhaustion does not mean God has forgotten you. It means the miracle is closer than you think. When you reach the end of yourself, something beautiful happens. You stop fighting alone. You stop pretending you're strong enough. You stop carrying what you were never meant to carry. And that is when you whisper the hardest, most powerful prayer of your life, God, I can't, but I know you can. And heaven responds, because God is closest to the broken. He listens deepest to the desperate. He moves strongest for the surrendered. Sometimes the miracle is not the situation changing, it's you changing. Sometimes God won't calm the storm because He's strengthening you inside the storm. Sometimes He won't remove the mountain because He wants to teach you how to climb. But make no mistake, God never leaves you stranded at the edge of your strength. He meets you there. When you feel empty, He fills you. When you feel weak, He carries you. When you feel forgotten, He whispers, I am here. Maybe everything fell apart. Maybe the job didn't work out. Maybe the relationship ended. Maybe the prayer you cried didn't get answered the way you hoped. But what if God let it fall apart so He could rebuild something better? What if that closed door was His protection? What if that disappointment was His direction? The end of yourself is not the end of your story, it's the beginning of God's miracle. Look back at your life. The moments that changed you the most were rarely the moments when everything was easy. They were the moments when you thought you wouldn't make it, and yet somehow, you did. That somehow was God. You didn't survive because you were strong. You survived because He stepped in. He held your heart together when it was breaking. He gave you peace in nights filled with tears. He gave you strength when your soul was tired. He gave you hope when you couldn't see the way, and He's not done yet. Right now, if you feel like you're standing in front of your own Red Sea, no way forward, no way back, remember this. God does His greatest work in places where human strength collapses. So don't fear the end of your strength. Don't panic when the plan fails. Don't lose heart when you hit the wall, because when your strength ends, God's power begins. When your path ends, His path opens. When your hope ends, His miracles start. And when God steps in, the impossible becomes possible, the broken becomes whole, and what you thought was the end becomes the beginning of something far greater than you ever imagined. God's timing is perfect even when it feels late. Waiting is one of the hardest tests of faith. When you pray with all your heart, when you cry out to God day and night, when you stand in expectation, and still nothing happens, it can feel like God is late. It can feel like heaven is silent. It can feel like your miracle is stuck on the way. But here's the truth you must hold on to with everything inside you. God's timing is never late, it's perfectly aligned with His plan for your life. We often measure time with clocks and calendars. God measures time with purpose. You may think you're waiting for a blessing, but sometimes God is using the waiting to prepare you for blessings bigger than what you can imagine. Think about Lazarus. His story is one of the greatest reminders that even when the situation looks dead, even when people have given up, even when it seems too late, God is still right on time. When Lazarus fell ill, his sisters sent a message to Jesus saying, "Lord, the one you love is sick." They expected Jesus to come immediately, heal him, and everything would go back to normal. But Jesus intentionally delayed. And by the time he arrived, Lazarus had been dead for 4 days. Everyone said, "Jesus is too late." But the delay wasn't a denial. It was preparation. Jesus wasn't coming to do a healing. He was coming to do a resurrection, something greater, something higher, something that would reveal God's glory in a way no one had ever seen. Sometimes, when God delays, it is because what He's preparing is bigger than what you asked for. You wanted healing, but God planned resurrection. You wanted a blessing, but God planned abundance. You wanted survival, but God planned victory. While you're waiting, God is working behind the scenes. The job you didn't get wasn't rejection, it was redirection. The relationship that ended wasn't heartbreak, it was protection. The closed door wasn't punishment, it was preparation. And because you can't see what God is building, you assume He's not building anything. But the truth is, He's aligning things you don't know exist yet. Waiting is not wasting. Waiting is a divine classroom where God teaches you trust, patience, and surrender. Because if the blessing arrives before you're ready, it could destroy you. But if it arrives after God shapes you, it will strengthen you. Think of a seed in the soil. You don't see anything happening for weeks. But under the ground, roots are forming deep, strong, life-giving roots. If the plant grows before the roots are ready, it will collapse. But when the foundation is strong, the plant not only grows, it flourishes. Your waiting season is your rooting season. God is growing your faith deeper, your trust stronger, your character richer, your spirit tougher. He is preparing you not just to receive the blessing, but to carry it, protect it, and multiply it. Sometimes God delays because the people you need in the next season aren't ready yet. Sometimes He delays because the opportunity you're praying for isn't prepared yet. Sometimes He delays because He wants you to see Him, not just the miracle. You see, if God answered immediately every time, you would depend on the blessing instead of the one who gives it. But when you wait, when you struggle, when you question, and still choose to trust, your relationship with God deepens. You learn that His silence is not absence, His delay is not rejection, His timing is not flawed. He knows exactly when to open the door. He knows exactly when to shift the season. He knows exactly when the miracle will bring maximum glory and maximum growth. Every great story in the Bible has a waiting season. Abraham waited 25 years for the promise. Joseph waited 13 years in slavery and prison. David waited 15 years to become king. Even Jesus waited 30 years before beginning His ministry. If God makes His greatest servants wait, He will also ask you to wait, not to harm you, but to prepare you. And when the wait is over, what He brings into your life will always be worth every single tear, every prayer, every silent night, every moment of doubt. Because when God's timing arrives, everything happens quickly, smoothly, beautifully, with a clarity that leaves no doubt that He did it. So if you're in a waiting season, take heart. Your story is not delayed. Your miracle is not forgotten. Your breakthrough is not denied. God is never late. He is always on time, and when He steps in, the timing will be perfect, the miracle will be powerful, and your testimony will be unforgettable. Miracles begin where faith refuses to give up. Faith is not just believing when things are good. Faith is believing when everything falls apart. Faith is not the smile you wear when life is easy. Faith is the whisper you say through tears, "God, I trust you." even when your heart is breaking. Faith is not standing tall because you are strong. It's standing tall because you know He is strong. Miracles don't happen in comfort. Miracles happen in desperation. Miracles happen when your faith refuses to give up. One of the greatest examples of this kind of faith is the woman with the issue of blood. For 12 long years she suffered. She wasn't just physically weak, she was emotionally drained, financially broken, socially isolated, and spiritually exhausted. People avoided her, doctors failed her, hope left her, but her faith did something extraordinary. It refused to die. She said one simple, powerful sentence that changed her entire destiny: "If I can just touch the hem of His garment," not "if I can talk to Jesus," not "if I can meet Him face to face," not even "if He prays for me." Just a touch, just the edge, just the smallest connection. That is faith that refuses to give up. It doesn't need the perfect situation. It doesn't need perfect conditions. It doesn't need the whole miracle. It just needs one opportunity, one moment, one touch. Many people had been around Jesus that day. Many were walking beside Him, bumping into Him, crowding Him. But none of them received a miracle. It wasn't the crowd that touched Him, it was faith. Faith has a language heaven responds to. Faith has a sound God recognizes. Faith has a persistence that cannot be ignored. And that woman, in her weakness, had more faith than an entire crowd of strong, healthy people. Her story teaches us something powerful. Faith is not about what you have. Faith is about what you're willing to reach for. You may not feel strong, but reach. You may not have the answers, but reach. You may be tired, but reach. You may be hurting, but reach. You may feel like giving up, but reach anyway. Because miracles begin where your faith refuses to quit. Think of blind Bartimaeus. When Jesus walked by, he shouted, "Son of David, have mercy on me." People told him to be quiet. They tried to silence him. They tried to push him aside. But Bartimaeus shouted louder. And Jesus stopped. Faith stops Jesus. Sometimes people won't understand your prayers. Sometimes they won't understand your passion. Sometimes they won't understand your desperation. That's okay, the miracle isn't coming from them. The miracle is coming from God. Faith is personal. Faith is raw. Faith is messy sometimes. But God honors faith that keeps moving, keeps reaching, keeps believing no matter how many obstacles stand in the way. Your miracle may not come the first time you pray, or the second, or the 10th. But faith says, "I will not give up until God moves." Faith doesn't walk away from the promise. Faith doesn't quit during the process. Faith doesn't die in the waiting. Faith keeps going even when the evidence says stop. Abraham kept believing even though his body said it was impossible. Noah kept building even though there was no rain. Daniel kept praying even though the law said no. The disciples kept following even when they didn't understand, and every one of them saw the miracle because their faith refused to quit. Your situation might feel impossible right now. You might be praying for healing, for restoration, for a breakthrough, for a sign, and nothing seems to be shifting. But remember this: faith is not measured by how quickly the miracle comes. Faith is measured by how long you're willing to believe. Faith is the bridge between the prayer you pray and the answer God delivers. Faith is the seed that grows even when you don't see the soil moving. Faith is the anchor that holds you steady in a storm. Faith is the fire that keeps you warm in the coldest nights of life. And faith, real, unstoppable, unwavering faith, is what opens the door to miracles. So today, even if you're tired, even if you're discouraged, even if you're holding on by a thread, don't let go. Don't stop praying. Don't stop believing. Don't stop reaching. Your miracle might be one more prayer away, one more step away, one more act of faith away. Because when faith refuses to give up, heaven refuses to stay silent. And when God steps in, the impossible becomes possible. The walls fall, the chains break, the miracle begins.